I
on
think
Channel
we
5.
are live. Good morning, everybody. We'll give it 10, 15 seconds. Quite a lot of people are still coming in. So we're going to be talking this morning about limited company buy to let, and this is the fourth webinar we've done, James. Now,
Yeah, I think it's number 4.
yeah, I think it is,
First
isn't
of
it?
the
So we've
year,
done
though. First of the year.
first of 2026. So we've done foreign nationals, consumer duty, self-building. Now we're doing limited company buy to let, and this one seems to be by far the most popular. Which is brilliant. I'd like to say it's because obviously there's two great hosts and great content, but I think it also might be a super topical discussion. So we'll make a start. We've got the brilliant Jenny in the background letting people in, so James and I can kind of concentrate on what we're doing without having to worry about who's trying to get in. So thank you everybody, I suppose, for joining us. So limited company buy to let, why yes and why now? So 30 minutes, bite-sized CPD. We'll send out the CPD accreditation certificates. It's available if you're on demand as well, and it is recorded. So you'll get links if you want to kind of watch it again. Help make James and I YouTube famous, so we don't have to do this for our day jobs for the rest of our lives, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but you never know. An agent ringing up wouldn't be a bad shout, would it? So yeah, CPD accredited. And all recorded as well, which is brilliant. Just a few little housekeeping bits. So there is a Q&A tab towards the top of your screens. If you do have any questions, pop them in there. We will probably leave 5 minutes or so at the end to get to them. Any that we can't get to, we can answer as a wrap up of part of the email that we send out as well. So yeah, get your questions in if anything kind of comes up. And the other kind of point is, James and I do these kind of once every 2 or 3 months, so keep an eye out for them. Go on,
I've
James.
just seen Himanshu just pop in a wee twins. Yes.
Yeah. So listen, we'll cover this off. There is a uniform to work at Darling Site. It is a quarter zip. It is a beard and it is a bald head. We do have another BDM, Kyle, who looks very, very similar. Very, very similar. Yeah, it's like a little DBS uniform. But yeah, all good things come with bald heads and beards. So I tell my wife. I've lost my train of thought here. So James and I do these every kind of 2 or 3 months. Is what I'm saying. If you follow us on LinkedIn, you'll see kind of what's coming next. We've got quite a few planned for this year. Some kind of topical things like some industry content. I'd really like to get something across around AI, some of the regulatory change for FCA that's coming as well. So yeah, kind of keep an eye out on them. And then you can also subscribe to the newsletter In the Loop, which picks up any kind of trade press articles that go out there, which we do quite a few with kind of industry insights as well. So that's enough of the housekeeping. We are on borrowed time. We've got a lot to cover off. So for anyone who's not been on here before, I am Chris Blewett, Head of Mortgage Distribution at Darling Bill and Society. I am heavily involved in process, in products, in proposition, and obviously dealing with you wonderful brokers and distributors as well. So, and I'm joined by James Travers, who, James, I'll let you do the intro. There's no point in me stealing it.
No. So I'm the digital BDM here, and I do the real work. Chris does the stuff behind the scenes. You know, I do the real stuff, talking to you guys, trying to get things over the line, letting you know the lovely things that we do. Going back to the twin thing, your dad has been to Stockton, hasn't he, Chris?
Yeah. Once he went for a night out about 40 years ago and swore he'd never go back.
Right.
So yeah, we'll let people draw their own conclusions. But listen, I think you're a very good-looking, stylish guy. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yeah, we'll pick it up offline. I think that's the professional term, isn't it?
Just on the real work, not to take umbrage of it, but there's about 10 months difference between us two, I think, isn't there? And I look absolutely haggard for 10 months, and you still look fresh-faced. So we'll let people decide who does the real stressful jobs.
So I've figured out the filters. That's all. I've just.
Is that all it is? Yeah, I need to get a better moisturising routine. Right, come on, let's kick off. Let's get.
We will. Yeah.
Cheers,
borrowed time, as you say, and this is going to be a great session. There's going to be a lot of kind of why, what's, where's. We'll sprinkle in some criteria as well, as we always try and do, to let you know what our proposition is. But this has been kind of a big topic that we've been really looking forward to getting out. I'll kick off with some questions, Chris, straight to you. All right. So
yeah, of course.
Limited company buy to let. It's become really a mainstream proposition over the past few years. Why do you think this market is mattering more now?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So there's quite a few things at play, so I'll kind of pick them off. So what I would probably say is there's been quite a rush towards professionalization, which is a bit of a mouthful. So limited company buy-to-let's not new. The concept isn't. It's been around for a fair while. But what we've really noticed, probably over the last 18 or 24 months, is that it's not just the preserve of those borrowers or those clients who've got like big portfolios, or they've got complex structures, or they've got complex properties in there. So that's always been there, and that's kind of where it went to first. The kind of the big people who kind of could see the massive tax advantages, they went straight to limited company buy-to-let, and that made perfect sense. And you had like this, I'll say cottage industry, it's bigger than that, but you had these kind of specialist lenders who wrapped themselves around it super quick and understood it and did a great job. And they were kind of backed by funders, and they were happy to kind of get a return on investment, and the margins were high and everything else. But what's happened through a number of reasons. So I'm not going to go into details on this, but obviously we had the tax changes that came over the kind of last 3 to 5 years, which kind of phased out any kind of relief in there. And that somewhat took care of the big portfolios, but still affected the smaller and the individuals. You then had some things that kind of came out in the budget, which is kind of after we launched, but you know what's coming in budget, so you kind of think you do. You then got the renters' rights reform bill, which I'm not going to go into details, but has put pressure on landlords. It gives them a hell of a lot more to think about. And I think what it kind of boiled down to is, if you're going to do it, you need to do it properly. And I say this, and it comes across quite disingenuous, which isn't intended. But we talked about it, like what you kind of call a dinner party landlord. I think the industry accepts dinner party landlords. So these are the people who've inherited a property, or they've moved out and they've got one, and it's nice and everything else, but ultimately it's not anything other than probably just a little bit of pension fund at the side, or maybe an asset for when they're later. And these guys effectively are just under that much pressure. Like, they're sat there going, I don't even know if it's worth it. Like, is it actually, I don't make a penny on it. There's loads of hassle and everything else. So those people who are doing it are professionalizing, back to kind of what I'm saying. And they're wanting to do it properly. We're seeing it, we're getting inquiries. And we, obviously, James, you know this, but we gather data really, really well at Darton Building Site. So we gather TEL data, we gather external data. And what kind of struck massively over the last 18 months was the telephony BDMs will get loads of buy-to-let inquiries, because we do quite a lot. And it was standard stuff, as in, my client is a bit quirky. They're a first-time buyer, a first-time landlord. Their income's a little bit kind of, here and there. And then ultimately it was like, yeah, we can do all that. Of course we can. That's what we're really good at. And then it was, but they want to do it in SPV. And that would then became, so it almost became the most common reason we said no to a case, and the most common reason we said yes. So we tracked the kind of trend analysis. And it was like every week the most common thing we were saying yes to was first-time buyer, first-time landlord, people wanting to do a holiday let via Airbnb, and things like that, the basic kind of stuff. But then the reason we were saying no to most cases is they want to do that via an SPV, which just kind of summarizes that market shift, that actually just mainstream buy-to-let, not the preserve of the complex or anything else, was just going limited company. It was almost becoming standard to be limited company. So I think that kind of answers your question. It was, like I said, there was a few threads in there I need to kind of pull together. But there's been quite a lot of things at play to make it not, like I say, the preserve of the specialists, or it's not niche anymore. It's kind of mainstream.
No, it's not. And taking calls, direct from brokers, every other call before we moved into this space played out like that.
Yeah.
First time buyer, non-owner occupier. Oh, can you do it in SPV? At the time, the answer was no, and it was frustrating for us, because we were working on it. We were getting it all lined up to do it. It just as everything does, takes a bit of time behind the work. So it's great to be in there. Going back to kind of the question I asked, the driving change for these customers, I think you kind of alluded to a lot of it, because there has been a lot of change going on for people. We've seen people, portfolio landlords, getting out of the space. Are all these changes obstacles for people entering the market, do you think? Or is it because it's all they know?
No.
It's not going to be kind of an issue.
So I think, listen, buy-to-let gets a hard time. Buy-to-let is still massive, and buy-to-let is still largely a sound investment. Obviously, there's different yields up and down the country. If you look at, I think there was a report by Hampton saying kind of rent dropped ever so slightly in 2025. But then if you look at it over kind of a longer term, they didn't really. They just kind of corrected themselves a little bit. There's still less. There's a supply and demand imbalance across everything in the UK in terms of homes, but there is still a supply and demand imbalance in terms of prospective renters and properties to rent. So I personally think, and this is Chris kind of giving his opinion, and also Chris as head of mortgage distribution, buy-to-let is still a really, really safe bet. I think what the kind of regulation and some of the changing has done is actually, if you're going to do it, you're going to have to do it properly. And I know I mentioned the kind of dinner party landlord before, but I think if you have one and it's just something you think about every now and then, I don't think that's the way to do it anymore. I think those people effectively are under probably too much pressure because they have day-to-day lives that are busy and everything else, and they're the people that you're kind of seeing exit. What we're kind of seeing is actually then portfolio landlords or first-time buyer, first-time landlords are actually going, no, I want to do this properly. I want to set up my own like little empire, and I want to do it via my SPV and everything else. And we're not going to touch on any kind of tax changes and tax advice, and I wouldn't advise advisors to get in that as well. Obviously, partner up with somebody who can do that, but they're doing it properly. They're not just doing it on the side of a desk. It's very purposeful. It's very set out. There's a plan of this property and the next, and we're hearing that in conversations. I was having a conversation with Dave. They've got one they want to remortgage, but they're also now looking at their second, and it's the client's quirky, hence why they want the second with us. And it's like, yeah, we get it. There's a plan, there's a structure, there's a business plan almost around these, as opposed to, well, if we pick one up, hey, it's an extra few £100 a month in the back pocket. That seems to have gone.
Like future proofing, isn't it? That's
a little bit, and we're seeing that. You might touch on it a little bit, because I know I'm going to kind of obviously talk about some of the kind of criteria quirks, but we're seeing that quite a lot with like intra-family structures. So kind of shareholders, directors as parents and kids, and the way that's kind of split to effectively not just kind of plan. I'm kind of thinking about me here, early 40s, not just kind of plan what I might want to do, but actually I'm planning for my children's future. So can I get them on? Can they be kind of minority? Can we? And we're seeing that, and it's obviously a quirk of our criteria that we allow it. But it is really, really interesting that if you rewound that maybe 6-7 years ago, that just would have been one person or a husband and wife going, can we just do a joint buy-to-let because we think an investment's something that we want to start looking at. They're now doing it. I know I keep saying proper, and I can't think of a better word, but they're now doing it where they've sat around the kitchen table with someone professional talking to them and going, actually, this is the absolute best way to do it, and limited company buy-to-let's lending itself that. So yeah, a real shift.
Yeah, it just, you're saying that kind of structure. I think the one we had the other day was husband and wife, directors, majority shareholder, 80%, 90%, whatever it was, and the two kids, really minimal shareholding. Fine for us, all directors on, minimum 75%. We're there for that cohort of people, which is great. Now, you mentioned the Hamptons last year. I think they were tracking that it was down in 2025. What do you think the market's going to be like in 2026? Do you think we're going to see a bit more of an injection? We've had some positive things back end of last year. Rate drop, always good. The budget, although we went into it thinking this is going to be the worst thing ever, was not nearly as bad as we thought. So, I mean, from my side and what I'm seeing, is it's quite positive at the minute. What do you think in that buy-to-let space?
Yeah, so I'm naturally positive. Anyhow, I'm in a sales role, so I've got to kind of make the most out of everything. But the Hampton stuff didn't frighten me. Like I say, if you looked at it as a snapshot, and you went, oh, rents are down. And then you looked at it as across everything, and you went, actually, there's just a little bit of a rebalance here because they shot up, and then they kind of came down a little bit. But if you look at it over a kind of 3 to 5 year period, they're still on a kind of positive trajectory. And then, like I say, there's still the imbalance of renters. Looking for properties and properties not being there. So yeah, there's still kind of plenty of opportunity there. Rates are coming down. I think 2, potentially 3 are kind of baked in if you look at the kind of swap rates over the kind of 2, 3, 5 year and the shorter term stuff this year, which is positive. So it's positive for ICR. House prices are ticking up nicely as well, so that's positive in terms of investment. If they're coming down, obviously you're less inclined to purchase. And then I think the other thing is, we're obviously relatively new to this market. We came in a bit of a semi-exclusive with a couple of distributors in September, and then went kind of big bang in November. And I think, speaking freely, I've been kind of bowled over with the demand for it. We're hotter than we expected, which is really, really positive. But we're not the only lender in that space, so I think there's a lot of things at play there. I think the market's positive. The demand for property is positive. The ability to mix up your portfolio. We do houses and holiday lets, which the holiday lets kind of driving some traction in there as well. And I know other people out there will do HMOs and multi-unit freeholds and stuff like that. But then you've also got more support coming in. I want to kind of big up the building society sector here a little bit, but you've got more support coming in from like we can think type lenders, and that I really don't mean that as a negative to the ones who are already there, but we're not black and white. You know, we're comfortable looking at the kind of the scenario, and then that gives more choice to the prospective borrower. So what it kind of means is, as we know from the stuff we've been doing the last 6 months, someone who might have really struggled 6 months ago now has a home for their mortgage, and they'll be a good landlord, and it'll be a good tenant, and everything else. So I think there's a lot of things at play which mean, would I predict it? Would I be, you know, this is recorded, so I suppose I can't get out of it. But if you kind of think about it as two lines, as like standard personal name buy to let, I think you're going to see them decline. They are declining. And then you've got limited company SPV buy to let, which is inclining. I think there'll be a point this year where they cross over, and actually more will be written on the limited company as choice becomes available and structures than will be on the personal name. You know, we do first time buyer, first time landlord. I'll answer a question also, so I'll put no minimum income on the first time buyer, first time landlord.
We'll get to them. We'll get to them little.
Yeah, we'll get. I'm sorry, I'm stealing your thunder. But if I was a first time buyer landlord again, I wouldn't do it in anything of the limited company, because at some point I'm going to want to protect that for my own actual purchase. So more choice, more kind of availability. You know, long answer short is yes, very, very positive outlook, and advisors are obviously super keen and super switched on to be part of it, which is good.
Yeah, I think probably that will probably segues into a little bit of probably criteria around kind of what we're offering. We recently aligned our LTV limits, which is always positive. So we moved up to 80% LTV for limited company buy to let and holiday let, which is always good. You know, less deposit can really maximise people buying. And Chris mentioned a few things which I'll just go over again. It is that dinner party landlord. That is who we are targeting. We are targeting people who are just getting into that space, people who have maybe recently opened an SPV and wanting to start putting the personal one or two that they've got in personal name into that. That is all the type of business that we're looking at. But it doesn't mean we're going to stay still and just do this. There's always things that we'll chat about kind of after the criteria that we're looking at and the market's looking at. But in essence, criteria-wise, it's really, really similar to how we look at our personal proposition. So we primarily see the most business for first-time buyer, first-time landlord, for non-owner occupier. And a good thing for us, which you've already mentioned, is around the income. We don't have a minimum income when it comes to our proposition. We still like a bit of income, you know, in case of any rental voids and things like that. But otherwise, there isn't a minimum that is needed. We literally will do it all on ICRs for you. And the good news is your limited company is your better ICR that we do. So we do it against 125. Our personal is 130 or 145, depending what kind of tax bracket you're in. But it's just a flat 125 in the buy-to-let kind of market. The stress testing against products the same. So pay rate +1 for a 5-year and pay rate +2. But the big question is, which clients is it we're helping? Well, we're generally helping a couple who've moved in together. One of them's got a property. One of them might be a first-time buyer, first-time landlord, but they're certainly a non-owner occupier. We're able to help them. We're able to help people who've got tired accommodation at work. We're able to help people who live in an expensive area. So we get a lot of people who are renting in places like London. They can't afford to buy, so they rent further afield. Teesside's dead cheap. You can get a street for what like flats are in London. So honestly, it's a great investor spot. And the other common one that comes up quite regularly is younger people, the 21-year-olds. You know, they're living at home with mum and dad. They've built a deposit up themselves. Do they want a resi? Can they afford a resi? Can afford it? Do they want it? Oh, everything's mint here. I get my washing done, food on the table. I'm not letting this go by just yet. These people are all the people that we can help in either personal or limited company proposition. So that is great. I think the lesser known one, because there's lesser lenders doing it, is holiday lets inside a limited company. There definitely isn't many, is there, Chris, who are doing that at the minute?
No, so holiday lets don't. I mean, holiday lets not as big a market, but the lender support for it is lesser again. So you've almost got like niche opportunity, niche support, and then wrap it with an SPV. It's kind of niche again.
Niche and a niche and a niche.
But then again, first time buyer, first time landlords within there. So it's a really odd one, isn't it? Because there's an element here of economy of scales and what we can stand for and what we can do. You and I get really frustrated that nobody ever says, go and blow the doors off, do 100 applications a day, James, see how far you can go. So we've got to kind of look at the points where you go, we just need to bring in one more. Where's the opportunity for one? One additional per day is enough for us given our kind of size and scale. So it is those kind of niches within a niche. And a lot of people kind of go, I don't come across that very often. And then I assume you do, James. I challenge back and go, so what do you do when you do come across it though? And they kind of go, there's no support. I really struggle with these, and that's the point. That's the point, isn't it? The mass appeal stuff, you've got BM Solutions, you've got the big boys for that. It's the bit where you kind of go, why doesn't anybody do this? Why doesn't anybody? These are all great. I always use the analogy of like Dragon's Den. I'd give them my own money, so why can't I get a lender to kind of do it? And yeah, it's really interesting with Holiday Let because really, really good yields, personal use. I'm stealing your thunder here, mate. Personal usage as well, so you can go and enjoy it yourself. And it's almost like, why doesn't anybody support them? Most of them are just nice residential properties in pretty areas anyhow. So it's not even like there's a risk on the property side. We're not talking like what do you call them, like barges or longboats, canal boats. That's what I'm looking for. Not longboats, they're Vikings. Canal boats, or like wooden kind of stick huts in the lakes. You're just talking about like really pretty houses in the lakes, and it's like, I can't lend on that because it's a holiday let. And then, I'm definitely still. And then people go, and I'm going to let it out via Airbnb, and lenders just fall over and go, I can't accept that. It's not, it's not what it doesn't come on a kind of low, medium, high. Who cares? It's Airbnb. It's the platform of how people do these things. So. Yeah.
You've definitely stole my thunder in a few areas.
Sorry, mate. I mean, listen, we look the same, so we can probably just dub our voices over.
Yeah, it's just we're in our own place at the time. But yeah, I think some of the misconceptions with holiday let is it is only for your leafy kind of green area. So the lakes, seaside towns is the only place that you can do holiday lets. It's not the case. As long as there's demand for short-term letting, we're going to be able to support. I'm not saying our area is terrible by any means, but I doubt there's anyone on the call that's wanting to come to Stockton or Darlington for a little bit of a holiday. No. You're probably not using your vacation time for that. But we do have a lot of industry. So we have a lot of wind farms, we have a lot of engineering sites. So we end up getting a lot of people here Monday to Thursday needing digs, Airbnb. It's fine. If the demand's there, we're going to support with it. And we assess it not on an AST, but an average of the low, mid, and high seasons that it rents out for 30 days. I saw God's country there. I'm not quite in God's country.
Yeah, we've got a fan of Dalton. I think it's the same guy commenting on the football shirt behind us.
Northeast on the call. But no, it is a really kind of big thing that we often say yes to in the holiday let side, and it's just a niche worth noting. The other thing I mentioned before is about not standing still. Like Chris said, we want to blow the doors off. We want to be able to lend to pretty much everything that you say. And Chris does so much work in the background, and there's so much more that we want to do in this limited company space. So I'm going to throw a question to you, Chris. What other kind of specialist mortgage deals should our lovely brokers expect to see more of this year? This could be stuff that we might be looking at, or that you think other lenders are going to be kind of there for them to support with.
Yeah. So I have to be careful here because there are things that I would definitely like to do, and I've got to obviously operate within kind of down bill size risk appetite. But we do.
Chris, just
I know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll call it the Bank of Chris, and then we'll just do everything. I think if you look at limited company buy to let, so we do an awful lot of expat buy to let, standard buy to let. So I would be very keen on us, and it's kind of on the pad to explore, but look at expat limited company buy to let. And we do a lot of that because of our stance on consumer buy to let. So I know I'm tripping into something slightly different here, but just because they've lived in it previously we don't treat that as consumer buy to let. We look at their intent, or whether or not it's been on a consent to let, or it's already had a tenant, and so on and so on and so on. So that kind of works. What's the LTV at Bank of Chris? Probably only low because it'll be all high risk stuff. 50% LTV. Yeah. So I'd like to get us into expat buy-to-let for limited company. That definitely feels like a natural segue because we do it. HMOs are something that we keep getting a lot of inquiries around, and they're a really, really good market. I think there's just a balance in there between, again, I've got to be kind of careful how I word this, but how do we attract a HMO which is for like the transient professional worker who, back to your point, maybe works in the city and then goes back home at a weekend, as opposed to the HMO where, dare I say it, there's like 10 people stuck in a room and it's a bit of a squat, and there's a balance in there, and some regulation will help that as well. So I think we just need to kind of keep attuned to that. And then it's not really on our radar at the moment, so we don't do portfolio landlords. But then, in my head, there's portfolio landlords. I've got 50 of them, and they're super diverse and they're all over the country. And then there's, well, I'm a portfolio landlord as per the regulation. I've got 4. And we kind of go, well, we'll do 3. And the second you do 4, we kind of go, we can't touch it because we don't do portfolios. So I think there is a world, and this is definitely happening with our peer group as well. So again, a nod to the building societies, where actually they're almost like, I'm okay with 3 with me, and you can have up to 5 in your portfolio. And there's other who kind of going, well, I'm okay with 5 with me, but you can have up to 10. And I think the average, I saw something last week when I was doing a little bit of research for this, which will please Jenny, who kind of helps coordinate because she thinks we just wing it. But I was having a look, a little bit of research, and the average portfolio has 12 in it, and that's when you encompass the people who've got hundreds and the people who've got 4. So everybody who's a portfolio landlord, the average portfolio's got 12. So I think from our point of view, there's a safe ground of 3 and 5, 5 and 10 type S, because you wouldn't use us for the 200. You probably wouldn't use us for 10 plus. That's the bit when you need the kind of specialists who underwrite a portfolio level. So there's that, and then if you look at none. We kind of came back into foreign currency last year, expat resi and foreign currency. Just launched that for first-time buyers, which has gone down really, really well. I think we can do a little bit more on the LTV. So we're currently at 80% LTV. I think we can do a little bit more on that. I think we can go a little bit higher. And that's probably it, if I'm honest with you. I don't think, I don't want to kind of go, well, everything's great, because it's a moving beast. But we've started this year at an absolute pace, quicker than I expected. And I'm kind of sat there going, actually, we just need to do what we do now very, very well. It's that kind of Gordon Ramsay thing, isn't it? You can have a menu of 20, you can do them all average, or you can have a restaurant that does 5 things, Michelin kind of 2-star. That's the lender I want to be. I don't want to be a building site who does everything. I want to be a building site who's really purposeful. So, yeah. We've got two minutes, mate. Really, have you got another question for me, or should we move into the Q&A?
No. I was just going to say, I think that really helps kind of our brokers, where we kind of plant our flag in 4 or 5 areas that we're proud to say, like, we do these pretty well. Come and use us.
Yeah, I mean, we do all. We do all the building site stuff. Of course, we do. We have no parade limit. We credit search. We manually underwrite. That's all. That. But how do we make sure that we don't just look and sound like another lender? And if you kind of squint at the building site sectors, you could be forgiven for thinking some of us are the same. So yeah, let's do a few things very, very well, and then let's do all the other stuff that we do anyhow without shouting about it. So yeah, that's definitely a tactic. Right, there are.
You want to have a look at a few questions there? Let's see. I don't think we're going to be able to get through all of them.
No, I don't. Yeah, they've been popping through. So let me see if I can load them up, and we'll get some. We'll get some to you. Criteria is probably more your strong point, James. So I'll fire them over to you. There is a lot in there, so bear with us. It's struggling to load a little bit. We might have to do some of these afterwards. So they're not loading, so I'll pick up some of the ones I saw. Do we have a minimum income on limited company buy-to-let? So we covered that one off. The answer was no, we don't. But we do require an income. So as long as they've got an income, we're not kind of going to look at how much it is. And that's on first-time buyer, first-time landlord, and on standard buy-to-let. It doesn't matter kind of which one. Holiday let, high, medium, and low. How many weeks average do we look at? You can take that one, James.
30 weeks that we do that.
Yeah, 30 weeks average of high, minimum, and low. We can go slightly higher, can't we, if required? It's very, very rare.
For a remortgage, we can go higher than that.
Yeah, so it's just proving demand. And then somebody asked as well about how do we assess Airbnb, but you covered that one off, didn't you?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool. But again, we can cover it off in the roundup. Can we do holiday lets for first-time landlords?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you look at remortgaging to take out a bridge? This one feels very specific. Within 6 months, based on the current value. What proof would you need to justify increase in value? Property purchase an SPV, client with first-time landlord, but is a homeowner. So I think that's effectively the 6-month rule. So I'll kind of answer that. And Leslie, this one's you. So hopefully I've answered it. And if I get a thumbs up or anything, that'd be great. So we don't have a 6-month ruling. So if they've purchased with a bridge and the mortgage with us is to repay that bridge, that's fine. We would do our own valuation and we would lend against that valuation. So does that kind of make sense? And you're nodding, James, so I've got that one right as well.
So we can do the open market value. Generally, we'll do the open market value when there's a bit of work done to it, but the value is going to kind of pinpoint us. We've had people just do minor kind of paint and carpet, and that's got the open market value down. Yeah. So yeah, that's totally plausible for us.
Yeah, cool. And then there's a few more in there which we probably need to kind of send out a bigger kind of here it is, because there's questions about kind of company structures and shareholding and stuff like that, which we'll cover all off properly. Otherwise, we're a minute over and I'll just fire stuff at you and quite a lot of it will get missed. So that is it. I've seen some of the questions as well. Are you twins? Get a room. Love the Darlow shirt. Cheers, Dan. Yeah, so we'll get through all these. We'll get everything out. I definitely won't promise it'll be out by the end of the week because there's quite a lot to wrap up in here. It is recorded, so it'll get put on YouTube. I think that's where it goes. And then a link to it will be sent out in the emails as well, which is brilliant. CPD certificates will follow shortly, as well as will a bit of a wrap up of the Q&A. In terms of who to reach out to, obviously you've got myself, you've got James Travers who's on here. If you go on our website, you get linked to your BDM. So you've got Kyle Sherritt for the North and Scotland. You've got Amanda for the Midlands and East Anglia. And then we've got the brand new BDM to the team, who is Rebecca, who looks after the Welsh brokers and those based in the Southwest. And I can see the back of her head, and she's watching this webinar, which I'll probably get some critique from afterwards. And now I can see her ears going up because she's smiling, so which is interesting. So listen, it's been brilliant. We love doing these. They're 30 minutes or 32 in this case. Really short, really sharp, really snappy, bite size. I'd like to know what you guys would like to see as well. I touched a little bit on before. I've been to quite a lot over the last few weeks, conference-wise, talking about tech, talking about AI. Some people from the FCA, I don't think I can get them on talking about advice and the removal of the triggers. So I'm quite happy to do some, probably not too dissimilar, some kind of CPD and Darlington, great stuff. But I think, James, it'd be really good if we got some, actually, Darlington just fully understand brokers and the challenges you're facing. So if there's anything you'd like to know about, maybe we can use some of our contacts to do that. So feel free to reach out to James or I on LinkedIn. Or if you've got our emails or phone numbers, drop us a text or a WhatsApp and just tell us what you like to hear about. We're always happy to add value. And if we get a few more cases, that'll be brilliant. But if you guys understand that James and I are on your side and building sites kind of get the intermediary market, then win-win for us. Anything from you, James, that I've missed off?
I think probably just time frame, probably aiming for 6 weeks.
Yeah, they take a little bit of fun together, don't they?
That's what we're going to try and do. But yeah, just give us any of your feedback. As Chris says, we'll come back to you on the questions we haven't answered. That's it. Really look forward to hopefully seeing you again. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you all very much. Thanks again, James. Catch you later. Bye.